Thanks for all those info. That was like a lot of really good context for everybody to kind of see what a lot of these problems at school. So kind of going off of that, have there been any times in your careers where you've used your position as like a union member or as an educator or an administrator or any of the various roles you guys have occupied to like lobby for a change in the way resources are distributed to try to get some more funding for mental health services or for special ed classes or anything? And were they successful, were they not? And maybe if they were successful, why were they successful? If they weren't, maybe why not? So if anybody could talk about that, that'd be great.
Well, we were on a bargaining team together. Gosh, 6 years ago, and at that time, our priorities were included increasing those support staff, nursing in every building, pre-K, expanding pre-K,
EL services, pay for Hmong dual immersion teachers.
So we did on those things, I think, use our roles as bargaining members to get more commitment to those things. And at the time we got, some of those commitments were in the form of the school board commitments, so they weren't formalized in our contract, but there was some commitment to adding a significant number of ELL teachers at the time. So,
and we, at the state level, we have lobby days where we bring members in to go to the Capitol and to talk to their senators and their representatives. I experienced that more on the state level and the national level. When I was sitting on the NEA board, every Thursday the board members will go to Capitol Hill and they'll talk to their respective senators or representatives. I do remember though, we had, I think it was 2013, after that 24-hour bargaining, we bargained for 24 hours straight, and we were able to come to a tentative agreement, but it was super contentious. And so when we entered the next round of bargaining, we needed to figure out how we could repair some harm that was done, and we had a lot of discussion. And one of the things that we did invite the district to do was to go with us to the Capitol to talk about how do we secure more funding for the district to be able to, you know, say yes to some of our proposals. And they do have a lobbyist. We don't have a lobbyist. We do at Education Minnesota, we have 2 lobbyists, but at St. Paul we didn't. And unfortunately, the district wasn't interested. I think that during that time there was a rally at the Capitol. Remember the rally at the Capitol?
You talking about May?
No, this was a few years back, but we had a big rally at the Capitol, and I remember that the Dakota County United Educators, which is in the Apple Valley area, their superintendent came out and stood with them, and ours unfortunately didn't, and neither did our lobbyists. So it would be, I think that educators do use their position to try to see if they can't influence policy. It would be much more effective if union members and district leaders could go together in a unified fashion.
So my job from now until June is that's basically what it is, you know, managing school stuff. Because budgets come out, I don't know when they're going to come out now, but and so I spend a whole lot of time every spring trying to make the case for certain parts of the budget that need more attention. So I'll give you an example. We had a Johnson High School is a restorative practice pilots school for the city, for the pilots for the district. And we got a big grant from the Federation and from the district 5 years ago, which I made plans for sustainability, because you have to have a sustainability. I mean, when the grant is over in 3 years, how are you going to sustain it? So I made my plans for sustainability based on my budget from 5 years ago. Okay, because if I have this much money, I can sustain these positions that help us to do this. It's very interesting work. But by the time the grant was up, my budget was $300,000 lower than it was. So I can't. So I spent all last spring arguing with district folks and everybody else, and state people too, about you want us to keep these programs, but and you tell me I have to have a sustainability plan, which I did, but my budget is lower. My student, at that point, my student enrollment was not that, was depressed by about six students. It's lower this year. That's another issue we have. So that's the kind of stuff that we, administratively, that we spend a lot of time doing, particularly in the spring.
Y'all can negotiate that, you know.
Yeah, hey, tell me.
Good. You totally could. They're members of a union too, although my beloved principal, who retired, told me, we're not a union, we're an association. But you could. You could absolutely negotiate that.
So, yeah, one of the, yeah.
I can organize it. I totally can do that. Call me.
I think for me, I think money is the driver of everything in this world, sadly. But we run into politicians who don't have the will to do it. People get elected, so right now our system is percentage increases every year. You know, this year we have 2% increase on our budget statewide. And election officials get elected by saying they increase funding for education. Even though if it's 2% and inflation's 2.4, they actually decreased funding for education. But they can say they passed a 2% increase in education. And so elected officials get elected, and the system that they have works for them because they keep saying, I increased it, but there's no real political will to do large-scale change, because that's hard. There's winners and losers, and people get mad. And people don't like getting mad in Minnesota.
Thank you for those answers. I think you guys kind of touched on this earlier, and I know there's not really one easy answer to this, but I was just wondering if you could talk about who you think should be accountable for funding education, or maybe how do you think it should change from how it's currently done, because it's pretty clear that it is not sufficient. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
I have a very technical answer, but I won't get into it. But it's the state of Minnesota should fully fund education. It's in our constitution. We're one of 9 states that have it written into our constitution that the state will actually fund uniform schools across the district or across the state. And I believe it shouldn't rely anything on local property tax, but it is a burden 100% of the state of Minnesota. Partially with the special ed funding having some national. But then the state of Minnesota should fill in for 100% of the rest.
And I would agree with that.
Absolutely, I agree too.
As a taxpayer in the city of St. Paul, which I'm perfectly happy to do, but the burden is, it's not a good thing. If I was in Minnetonka, I'd have $3,000 more per student. Even though they say that we got more because of our compensatory, but that's a different issue.
I have a question. So what, kind of similar to like the Mall of Americas, are there other corporate entities that also aren't paying their fair share in St. Paul that could also, if they
Target,
were?
U.S. Bank. And let's do this. Let's talk about colleges, right? Let's talk about colleges that don't pay taxes, like Macalester, like St. Thomas, and a whole bit, right? Like if y'all would kick in a little bit of tax dollars.
Well, then their tuition goes up, I think.
Endowments.
No, but they don't have to do that though. They don't have to do that. They got endowments. Are you kidding me? The University of St. Thomas, I got a $1,000 scholarship. You can tell I'm still bitter about that. $1,000, but their what do you call it? Endowment is huge.
It's 30% of the tax base, right? Am I right? The nonprofits in St. Paul. Because St. Paul is a government town.
It's a government town and it's an education town, and so that's harder on the tax base.
And it's not, so there's Northfield, which has
Carleton
and St. Olaf. Both of those colleges have willingly entered into agreements with their local schools to kick in a share of their endowments. So it's not like a radical thinking. Other places are doing it.
And can I just add, those places are going to raise tuition regardless of endowments being relegated towards anything. As a Carleton alum, even with that kick in, when I started, Carlton was about $48,000 a year. Now it's at 60, and that's in the span of 6 years.
This might be kind of like a silly question given we're like in the middle of strikes, but how do you guys navigate like the tensions that arise between like you and like your colleagues and like superiors when you're trying to fight for these issues, but you still have to have like very personal relationships and like interactions with people?
I think it's building to building. Michael is, I would say, beloved at your building, from what I've heard. And there's other buildings that have more contentious relationships, so it's really building to building. You guys have been in education longer.
So you're talking about the relationship between teachers on strike and teachers who choose not to strike and things like that, as well as administratively between the Federation members. We just had a big, I was sitting with my assistant principals today talking about